So today, the ward off series. Sometimes I'll call it the series, sometimes I'll say sequence. It's really ward off, grasp the bird's tail, roll back, rotate and press, and pushing chi. This is very foundational to Tai Chi because really what Tai Chi is a system of moving when you're addressing an opponent. And the ward-off sequence has a lot of those movement patterns in it. So let's just review what the ward-off series is first. I'm going to step up here. And remember, we do it on both sides of our body in the short form. So holding the ball to the right, we step out, ward off, grasp the bird's tail, roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. Then we bring our weight to the right, bring it back to the left, and we step out, ward off, grasp the bird's tail, roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. Right now, normally, that's in a flow, just like what we did. And we learn it as a flow. We don't learn it as individual movements, but we learn to make it flow. But by applying some of the other underlying principles, we can make it flow even more and help you relax through that movement as you understand it better. And that gives you the benefit of Tai Chi, of being more rooted and grounded, being more stable, being more balanced, and having the ability to relax your body. So let's take just the individual movements real quick. We're going to break it apart. Like I said, it's normally a flow, but let's break it apart for a second. Holding that ball to the right, you step out, ward off. This is Pong. P-E-N-G, Pong. Now, I don't speak Chinese. I'm going to try to pronounce it as best I can. Pong is a very aggressive movement, grasping the bird's tail. Now this here, this roll back is called Lu, L-U. And this roll back is a yielding, but it can also be a controlling of your opponent. It doesn't mean yield as in you're scared and you're moving back. It's a way of moving even though you're addressing that opponent, letting his energy come in on you, because then you're going to come back with this Ji, the rotate and press, J-I-Ji. You're pushing this wrist into your opponent, and this is an aggressive movement. And then on is pushing chi, which is both aggressive and yielding. And it can be used either one-handed or two-handed like we do in pushing chi. Remember I said this is a system of moving when you're addressing an opponent. That's a very important piece of Tai Chi, that you do have to have a sense of an opponent to really understand it. So now we're going to start applying some of the other underlying principles. And you can see I have these bars on the floor. This is a great way for you to practice. You can put 2 bars like this. You can put tape down on the floor, you can just put twine on the floor, whatever it is, but about 2 feet apart for the average person. Now, if you have really long legs, you might want to make it a little bit further apart, but I'm about 5'6". 2 feet is a good space for me. Now, normally we would start our ward off like this, but I'm going to address this way because I want you to see what my feet are doing. I'm holding the ball to the right, and when I step out to this bar, this back bar, and I rotate into my ward off. Now you can see that I have plenty of room, I have space, and that space makes me more stable. Because if I step out like this, and then I turn into my ward off, I'm not stable at all. I'm like walking on a tightrope. So we need to learn and practice stepping out wide and allowing our body to be rooted and grounded, to have a good, stable stance. So this is very important. Step out and practice. It might feel a little odd at first. Grasp the bird's tail, roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. So it may feel a little odd at first, like what I just said, but as you practice it and you learn to be more rooted and grounded, to lower that center of gravity, you will feel more stable in that stance, and it will start to feel a lot better. Now I'm going to leave the bars here for just a second because I want to talk about the ball of energy and I want to talk about columns. So in our ward off, that ball of energy starts with that hold the ball. Then we make that ball small. We step out, we ward off. Then we grasp the bird's tail and we still have that ball here. And then when we roll back, we yield with that energy back. And then we press. And we're actually pressing that right hand into that left wrist for now. And then when we do our pushing chi, that ball of energy is right here. So following that ball of energy through the ward off sequence is part of understanding that sequence. But it also is going to help you understand staying within your columns in the whole sequence. Now remember, we have 3 columns, one straight down the center of our body, one through each shoulder, through each hip. And we want to keep those columns intact. We want those columns to help us be more balanced, to help us remain stable. And we've talked about lowering our center of gravity and being rooted, but if we allow our columns to break, now all of a sudden we're not going to be stable. One of the ways that I see people break their columns is when they grasp the bird's tail, they'll grasp behind them. Now you can see my columns are not intact right now. This is not a good position. One of the other ways that they'll grasp the bird's tail is they'll reach like this. And that's a very hard position as well. We want to stay within our columns when we're doing that ward off sequence. So as we step out, ward off, grasp the bird's tail, you can see I'm staying within my columns. Now I'm going to grab a prop. This is a 4-pound medicine ball. And I don't imagine that you all have one of these at home, but if you have something heavy, this is a good way to reinforce keeping your columns intact. If you hold this ball and you step out, ward off, you do not want to take this ball outside of your columns because it's going to bring your momentum all the way over there and you're going to fall. You want to grasp the bird's tail like this, keeping your body underneath this weight. You also don't want to, when you roll back, come back behind you like this. And I'll see people come back behind either way. You still want to stay within your columns. So now I'm going to put the ball down for just a second. And I'm going to come back to that illustration facing the other way with the ward off and using that ball. Straighten my lines out. So now as I'm facing this way, if I'm holding that ball of energy and I'm stepping out, notice here that I keep my columns intact as I ward off. As I grasp the bird's tail, my columns stay intact. I'm not reaching too far. I'm not reaching up like this. This is really heavy. I don't like this. So ward off, grasp the bird's tail. Now when you roll back, you just come to here. You stay within your columns. You don't want to roll back like this. Again, you're breaking those columns. So practicing with a ball is something that will reinforce that working within your columns. So remember, we want that benefit of relaxation. And if we stay within those columns, our body is more relaxed because the muscles are working the way they're supposed to work against gravity. So now, the next underlying principle that I want to talk about is rotation. And of course, that is, you're rotating on that central column, so it relates to columns. But it also relates to moving from the Dantian. So as we hold that ball to the right and we step out, we're rotating from here. Notice how my back foot rotates as well. And that's, if you don't, I'm going to come here and just step out of my little bars here. If you can see, notice this back foot, it rotates, so now it's facing almost the same direction as that front foot. It might be a little bit more 45 degree. But the last thing you want to do is keep that foot pointing out that way. Because that means you're not moving from the Dantian. It also means you're going to torque your knee, and that's not comfortable and that's not relaxing. So moving from the Dantian means you're moving this whole section and the foot and knee follows. So as we rotate on that central column, we're moving from the Dantian. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Again, I'm moving from the Dantian, and then again, I'm moving back this way to come into my rotate and press, and then my pushing chi. If we move from the Dantian and let the Dantian lead that motion, it actually helps the arms relax even more because they're just following what's happening here. It's almost like a whip or a barber's pole, where this is the movement and my arms just follow. So hold the ball to the right, step out, lead with the Dantian, ward off, grasp the bird's tail, lead with the Dantian, roll back, then lead, rotate and press. And this is even leading here where I'm pulling my body back from the Dantian and pushing forward. I'm not pushing, leaning back with my shoulders. It's my Dantian that's moving back and then moving forward. And that leads me into that next principle, substantial and insubstantial. Your weight is shifting at all times during this ward-off sequence. And the weight shift is important. It's not just random. Your weight's on your right, holding the ball to the right. As you step out, moving from the Dantian, you're now bringing your Dantian over your base of support. The weight is coming forward. Remember, you're supporting that ball of energy. Then as you roll back, you're yielding. You're bringing that Dantian over this base of support. So now the weight comes back. Then as you move forward into this aggressive press, your weight comes forward, your Dantian comes over that base of support. Then as you yield here in the part of the pushing chi and then push. That substantial and insubstantial is very important. Let's try that one again. Holding the ball, step out, ward off, bringing that weight a little bit forward, but staying within your columns. Roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. So let's do it again. Take a nice deep breath in here. Step out, breathing out. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back, breathing in as you yield. Then breathing out as you rotate and press. Breathing in, coming towards your body. And then breathing out as you push your opponent away. So the breathing, if you think about your sense of an opponent, the breathing really matches what you're doing with that idea of addressing your opponent. Let's do it again. Take a nice deep breath in. Breathe out as you ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Breathe in as you roll back. Breathe out as you press. Breathing in and breathing out as you push.